being able to transform ourselves out of that, that's amazing, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So yes, I think that both are true. We are stuck in a prison being eaten alive by these freaking lunatic, demonic entities, and we can also use it because we are way more powerful than we have been told. Because of course that's another lie, that we're just some, we were just some accidents, and
Yep.
we evolved from an amoeba into an ape to a ridiculous bullshit, all this Darwinian crap, patently not true. Evil seems to have got really out of balance. I mean, I think it should be. It was probably set up as yin and yang, the sort of equal, some sort of balance. It seems it's gone way out of balance, and I'm sure it will. In time, the pendulum will swing back. But right now, it's way out of balance. But but the good news is, the more pressure you put on a human being, the more you squeeze it up against a wall, the more likely that human being is to suddenly connect to that divine aspect of them, and suddenly poof, they become an incredible, powerful force. And so, in that level, it was good. The shitty experience allowed that spirit to suddenly to come into its own. So, yeah, I think they're both true. But me personally, I'd like to get out next time. I really don't want to
Would
get
you?
born into a world. Yes, I think I don't want to get born. Can you imagine? Say I live another 20 years, right? 20 years from now, what will happen? I'll probably be born into a bloody plastic womb
No,
and
no.
been, like the
No,
sort
we'll
of.
have circled and loving every minute, covered in pig shit and stuff like this. I'm going, this is all right. Doesn't breakfast taste great again? Yeah, it does. No more plastic and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. I mean, you're right, all of the things that they do. The whole idea of hiving off energy from human beings is just as above, so below, right? So what we've got down here, the negative aspect down here, is that's how governments and all human authority systems
Yeah,
work. They suck in the attention of the congregation, the electorate, whatever the name is for the gang,
yeah.
and they say, we know best. We know how to organize it and make it better, honest. And yet you see no evidence for that. That it's not done anything of
Uh,
the sort.
Not
You
at
know,
all. No, exactly. You saw that. I presume you saw that little video that was around this week. Where the guy was talking about, the
peasants.
sort of medieval times
Yep.
where people had, what do they have? Like 180 days holiday a year. They had 2 hours. This was just, people the peasants, so they were kind of slaves in a way. They had 2 hours for lunchtime. 180 days of holiday a year, and they had great food, and they were outside, and they were healthy. Now, I mean, some people have to work three jobs,
Mm-hmm.
and they have nobody. Some people have no time for themselves. It's just disgusting. And they say, well, I always joke about America. I used to live in America, and my
Did you?
ex-husband.
So you
You
did.
know I did. You did. I did. Anyway, but
America?
my
Where's that?
ex-husband, bless him. US of A. Anyway,
Yeah.
the my ex-husband used to call it the land of the free and home of the slave. You know how they go, the land of the free and home of.
Yeah.
Once we went to some bloody, oh my God, it was in Spain actually. Went to some expat American Thanksgiving, and they all stood up, and they're such idiots.
It's a bit
No,
rude of you.
it's not right.
Our next
No, I
guest,
know.
Frederick's from America. He'll be very cross. He might not be, but he might be. He might tear me off a strip when he comes on. No, that's absolutely fine. Well, every group, every nation, every tribe has its founding myth, and in a way, you need them as a sort of an orientation guide to who you might be down here. Of course, everybody goes, "No, we're all one." I don't say that because
No, we're
I
not
don't
all one.
see
That's a
any
bit
evidence that
rubbish.
we're all one at all, and I don't
Well,
even know
just
why
then
you'd
it
even want
means
to
you can
be. What's the
marry,
point?
just marry the homeless guy down the road then, or
Yeah.
what difference does it make? No, we're not all one. That's
No,
just
the natural world reflects a higher law base, and people ignore it at their peril. And unfortunately, many
yeah,
are. And that's, to a great degree, that's why we're in so much trouble, because people have become spiritually and intellectually rudderless to a great degree, and
yeah.
by design, of course, because they
Right,
need
all by
they
design.
need to suck your attention out of you. Pay attention to
Yeah.
this. I mean, what was coming up next week? It's gibberish. The whole thing's a complete waste of time. And it stops you actually building that pig pen that you need to build. Oh, I've got to worry about this. I wouldn't do that if I were you, right? If your number's up, your number's
No.
up. I'd forget about it. If they're going to drop bombs on us, they're going to do it, right? They're not going to do that because we're still of some use.
Do what is the right thing to do, which is kind of why I'm here in Brazil. And I don't have a pig pen actually, but because it's just sounds a bit stinky, but anyway, but I do have an amazing chicken coop with about 70 chickens, and I've got about 20 ducks, and at the moment I've got four turkeys, but she's sitting on. I got lady turkey sitting on about 8 eggs, so I'll get some more turkeys, and we've got fish in our ponds, and we've got food growing, and we've got bananas everywhere. In fact, I've just actually. I say we, it's the royal we. My guy that works for me, he's just planted 96 banana trees.
Yes.
And then in a few months, when they get a little bit bigger, we're going to be planting 200 coffee bushes.
Are you? So
I'm going to have a coffee and banana plantation as well. And so I'm just getting on with it. I'm like, all this talk, the latest pandemic bullshit. In fact, if they manage to get it off the ground, which I'm not convinced they can, because there's too many people just going, oh, what a load of bullshit. But if they do somehow get it off the ground and they say, oh, you can't do this and can't do that, I don't care anymore. Yeah, I've got this huge area of land. No, I'm not going to play it anymore. I don't want to play their silly games. I'm not going to wear a mask. I'm not going to do this. I'm done. I don't care. They don't scare me.
The baubles that they put before us are losing their seductive appeal.
God! If I never go into a shopping mall again, hopefully I never will. Funny enough, last time in the shopping mall was about 3 years ago. I was going to try and buy these boots for some reason. Anyway, I went to this shopping mall, and I was standing there. All of a sudden, I started to feel really nauseous, and then all these lights were beaming down on me, and there was all this Wi-Fi, and I suddenly turned to Jim. And I goes, "We got to go. I've got to run. I've got to puke." He goes, "What should I do with the boots?" I don't care. Just drop them. And I just ran as fast as I could out of this shopping mall. I was like, "Oh my God, I'm literally going to puke. I feel so bad."
Right.
So I've never been back, and I probably never will go back into one of those places. I go to a little local town, which I have, where I go into little shops run by little people that own the shop themselves. It's not some, chain or whatever. And I'm just very happy, and I don't care. And if someone's, oh, you can't go here anymore, you can't. So what? I've had a great life. I've lived in all different countries. I've been to thousands of amazing restaurants. I've made love to lots of people. I've traveled all over the place, been to loads of beaches, been on yachts, been on, I don't care anymore. I'm like,
sounds pretty good.
Yeah, well, it was good. That's why I say I've had a great life, and it's still having a great life.
Yeah. Anybody that's growing bananas and coffee.
What, have you tried dehydrated bananas? I have a dehydrator, because we have, when we have bananas, we have like the entire, what do you call that? The whole
banana, the skin.
Well, no, you know what I mean. The whole thing, not just a little bunch like you get in Sainsbury's. It's like
you get everything, don't you? Yeah, you get the lot.
Well, it's like hundreds of bananas.
I'll need photographic evidence, Helen, at some point soon. I want a picture of you with a towering banana tree over you or something. That'd be great.
Yeah. No, I can do that. But anyway, so when we have them, there's like ridiculous number of them, and so I've got a dehydrator, right? And I put them in, I cut them in half, and we've got all sizes. I've got ones that are the size of your little finger. They're so cute, and we've got these. They're all different sizes, and we've got some red ones with red skins. But Brazil has loads of different bananas. It's great. But I slice them up, put them in my dehydrator for about 24 hours. My God, they are so good. And I put them in a jar, and I a bit like you. I eat about 10 a day. I snack on them. I adore them. So hopefully it is good for you. I think it is. Lots of potassium and stuff like that.
Yeah. There's plenty of it's nothing compared to just spooning potassium straight into your mouth, which I do. We've got a big jar of it. Oh, I'll have some of that. And that's pretty good. The other thing I'm glugging is black seed oil. You're supposed to have a teaspoon, but I can't be bothered anymore because the spoon gets so oily. So I'm the only one in the house. So it's like drinking liquid dirt. It's the most aggressive sort of tasting thing on your tongue. I love it. It's really rough. I love it.
Very good for you, but very good for you. Yes. Yeah. I have some. I need to get back into it, actually. You're right. It's
somebody put me onto it, said over at some point. Maniac
well
over
done.
does it.
They know there's extracts of liver and all that, and gallbladder and whatever it is. They're fantastic. No, absolutely.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
So it's all jolly good
stuff.
stuff.
A lot of liver.
Yeah.
I get my meat from my neighbour, and so he gives me. I get total grass-fed beef. Lamb, goat, whatever, from my neighbour. And I get the particularly like the lamb's liver and the goat's liver.
My sons still talk about it, Helen. About they've since I informed them that there were 238 million head of cattle in Brazil. They suddenly went, more steak there than in Argentina. I said, I think so. Yes. Yes, they dwarf Argentina with a mere 58 million head of cattle. There are 238 million. I'm going, that's an awful lot of steaks. Wow. So you don't know. It may be that people decide on the basis of where the good food is and just go, what's the point? There's no point having all this money if I'm going to rot from the inside out by eating all this crap, which is unfortunately true.
Yeah. Or be careful. In America now, you've heard about all those ticks. They've infected these ticks with some horrible toxin.
Is that Bill Gates again?
Yes, and so
he's
made the ticks so when they bite you, you then get an allergy to meat.
Oh, right.
You'll have to stay in your 15-minute city, sorry, right? But also it's meaning that people that get bitten can no longer eat meat, so they're going to have to eat the disgusting fake meat made from cancer cells or whatever it is, God knows. From Bill Gates. It's
just warfare.
So bonkers.
It's warfare.
Yeah, warfare against us.
Dressed up in all these sophisticated pseudo-scientific articles and all this, that and the other. But nevertheless, it's warfare because no one has asked for our consent. And even if we refuse to give it, which we would, that'd be ignored as well. So there's no real, in terms of dealing with those people, there is no a solution from a communications point of view. That's simply not possible.
Can we just put them down, Paul? Please, just tell me. Can we just put them down? Just like you would a rabid dog. It's just like.
We need some mechanisms for doing that. I was going to say something very politically injuries in between that are the problem. The ones that will carry out these orders because they're getting paid. Yeah. And I still think the way to stop most of this, not all of it, but to stop most of it rapidly is to do with banking. As I'm always droning on about here, but I've been like that for 25 years. And that's really it.
If they stop being paid.
Yep, if you don't get paid, if you have no purchasing power, they'll stop acting on the orders that they receive. It's as simple as that. You take their hands off the levers of that, and everything that they control start to wither. It's a bit like the ring in Lord of the Rings. All the power was in it. Once it's gone, they all die, because that's the thing that's holding them all up. It would be gradual. It wouldn't be as sort of cinematically explosive and as exciting as it was in the film. Although, who knows? It'd be great if it was. 42 million people have died today. It turned out they were all bastards. So the world's a better place. Great. That's the sort of news we want on BBC.
Wouldn't that? Well, we can hope for that. I tell you what, we can hope for that.
Helen, we're coming to the end of the hour. It's been great. We're going to have to do this again. You sound fantastic as well. Wonderful with the microphone. Really, it's spot on audio. It's really good. Where can people catch more of your work and get in touch with you and find out more about your
yes, absolutely. Well,
house cleaning services?
Yes, exactly. There's the psyche cleaning services. Right. So that's what it's called. With my name, Helen Basinger. So you can get that with, I think it's an ebook or an actual physical book. Then I also do classes sometimes. I do about 2 a year. I've just did one about 2 months ago, but I may do another because I've got a bit of a little list at the moment of people that like to do it that couldn't do it last time. So I may be doing a class. It's usually a weekend thing where I teach people to do what I do. I just pour out as much information as I can. It's a chance for people to practice. And so they can go around either helping themselves or their friends or their clients if they're in this kind of area of business.
Post away like Billio in the Telegram group, Helen, because Helen posts a great deal in the Telegram group that's associated with this show. You can find the link to it at paulenglishlive.com. And you're very active in that, which is great. I'm going to have to wrap it up now because we've got to say goodbye to WBN. Have a wonderful time with your coffee and bananas, Helen. Really do.
Thank
and I'm
you,
looking
sweet.
forward to seeing the photos, and we'll have you back here in a month or so, something like that, if you're on for it. It'd be
All
great.
right, my darling.
Really enjoyed it.
All right.
Lovely.
I enjoyed myself too. Thanks so much. Ciao.
Brilliant. See you soon. Helen Argal in Brazil. Okay, we're going to say goodbye to WBN now. We'll be back again same time next week. Technical trousers willing. It's looking bad, isn't it? At times. We'll be back again next week, 3 p.m. US Eastern, 8 p.m. in the UK, and the following week as well. We're carrying on here, however. If you want to keep on listening, you'll have to go to paulenglishlive.com and click, I think at the moment, FFT Radio, although I just got the YouTube stream up and running about 15 minutes ago when the streaming service came back online, which was very kind of it to do such a thing. Anyway, as you know, we're always talking about farming here. Here's an old farming song. I might even play 2 songs. But here's an old song about farming, which you'll all like.
There's a one called misery, but of that we'll have none, because we know of one that's always lots of fun. This one's name is Jollity, believe me folks, it's great, for everything sings out to us as we go through the gate. All the little pigs, they grunt and howl, the cats meow, the dogs bow wow, everybody makes a row down on Jollity Farm. Pigs, they grunt and howl.
Grunt, howl, grunt, howl.
The cats meow.
Meow, meow.
The dogs bow wow.
Ruff, 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 ruff.
Everybody makes a row down on Jollity Farm. All the little birds go tweet, tweet, tweet down on Jollity Farm. Regular as habit, the cocks begin to crow. And the old buck rabbit sings.
Knock it up a jumper.
Do-do-do-do. All the little ducks go quack, quack, quack. The cows all moo. The bull does too. Everyone says, how do you do? Down on Jollity Farm.
Marvellous, wonderful, stupendous, and all that kind of stuff. That was the Bonzo Dog Doodah Band with Down on Jollity Farm. I think it's just called Jollity Farm. That was a live recording. I'll get a studio recording for next week. I mean, we can't have enough of that. What with it being going out on Food for Thought Radio and us being thick as thieves with the farmers and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, welcome back to Hour 3. We're here through to just before 11 o'clock. And the only place you can hear this now, I think, is FFT Radio. Although, as I just said before the break, I got the stream up and running desperately late on YouTube. Rumble's still having none of it, so there we go. So I've got some wonderfully interesting things to do this week. We'll see if we can get those fixed for next week. Our guest is here. In fact, he's been here for yonks. I don't know what's going.
So far, it's stayed up, so hopefully we won't have any problems.
I
I'm
think
sorry you had problems.
It's in keeping.
Yes. But a
It's in
great
keeping.
show. I thoroughly enjoyed Miss Collie Spell and Miss Helen. That was some great information. And
I know. I just thought we'd better get a bloke in, I thought, to sort of balance it out a little bit. It was just all ladies, tonight, because I am a bit of a ladies' man.
Well, yeah, so if you're going to start out the show with Northern Scum, you should, finish it with Southern Scum. So
Yes.
I'm from the U.S. South.
Yeah.
I loved her talking about, Manchester and Bolton. That was great. So I always liked
Bolton.
going up to
They
Manchester
say dare.
when
I love the way they speak. It's just, it's a very, it's a great accent. I love it. It's fantastic. It's really good. They've got a way of rolling their R's and things, and it's fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
But I think you
love
tap
the
into
Doodah.
something there. When you said Northern Scum and Southern Scum, you're tapping in. I've thought this for ages. I've thought that Northerners, Yorkshire and Lancashire, they're the same sort of thing as like Texas is to the rest of America, where like York should have been the head of the whole thing, you see, because it wasn't. They picked Londinium instead and all that kind of stuff. Actually, we were always going to get beat because they got that massive river. But there is a sort of begrudgingness up north about bloody Southerners and things like that. I don't hold that, by the way, having spent a long time living with people from the south, and they're fundamentally no different. You've got oafs and you've got really great people wherever you go. Yeah.
I wish I still had my Northern Scum T-shirt from the band The Beautiful South. I remember them from
Yep.
the 90s. Mm-hmm. And one of their tour shirts was Northern Scum, the Beautiful South.
Nice.
And they were from Manchester, of course.
Of course.
Hull.
Yeah, Hull. Yeah, they were.
Hull.
Yeah, they were from Hull, which I used to. My dad used to travel to Hull on sales trips and things like that, but he always used to call it hell a bit every day. Although it wasn't as bad then as it's become, and they've got some fantastic fish and chip shops up there. Not that I would know because I've not been there for 50 years having fish and chips, so it's quite a while. But they did have back in the 70s. And stuff like that. So if you're struck by lightning, we'll know what's gone on. I mean, you have been inspirationally struck by lightning, Frederick. I know that, but I meant sort of literally.
Literally.
Yeah.
Yes, if you hear a sizzle on the line, you can just go to something, play some more music, like the Doodah Band. I enjoyed that. They're such an obscure band, and they were in the Magical Mystery Tour, the Beatles movie.
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
Yeah,
they
play
were.
Death Cab for Cutie. A lot of little esoteric information in that song.
Yeah. Oh, they're just they're a refined, all part of jolly old English fun, and it was great. I remember seeing an interview with them one time where they're saying, "Well, how did you get into all this sort of music?" And at the time in the 60s, there were all these old record shops in and around London with all these 78s. Nobody was buying them. So they went off and bought them and dug up all these songs and stuck them on the record player and went, we could knock something out like this. And so it's a sort of an evocation of that era with those sort of jolly party tunes and those sort of banjo arrangements and things like that. And they did jolly good. They were obviously a niche
Spike
band.
Jones had children in England.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, so they were a bit of a niche band and everything. Now, hasn't something interesting been going on in politics over there? Not that I caught a very brief sort of to do with this chap Massey.
Yes, the great Massey.
He's a good guy.
takedown.
He's a good man, isn't he? Yeah.
And, it was very interesting how that election panned out. And for, folks not familiar with U.S. politics, we have this thing called the primaries, where you have, just local groups decide who's going to run in the big election for the Republican Party. So you have a Republican primary, and then the Democrats have a Democrat primary, and then come November time, you have the main election where the two parties face off against each other, right? Mm-hmm. Well, one of the strategies of taking out people that don't go along with your agenda is to saturate the Massey Thomas Massey from Kentucky, which is the district of western Kentucky, right below the city of Cincinnati. On the other side of the river from Cincinnati is his district, and it's like 21 counties or 22 counties.
Right.
And he had been, the congressman for multiple terms. Everybody in his district loves him, but he was the one who basically ran forward, exposing the Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, Ehud Barak, scandal, for whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. And that's, you can't do that. And so the political parties basically teamed up on him, and Miriam Adelson spent millions of dollars in this primary over here and has got a packed house for losing, right? Mm-hmm. And, it's just amazing. Just this machine we can go in and, with our capital, take out your elections because we don't like what the people are saying. So it's no longer a local representation type election. It's outside influence telling you who you're allowed to vote for. And also, you also have all the 2020 redux where there's like 10,000 ballots showed up in the middle of the night, mail-in ballots. And so that was how they skewed the 2020 elections here in the States.
Right.
And so it's just all the same dirty tricks, but focused on this little precinct in Western Kentucky. So, yeah, that's been quite the news cycle here, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, I don't...
Hey, that wasn't right.
No, obviously not. I mean, Massey's one of the few people that's actually uttered truthful statements from your political lot. he was the one that
And that's
pointed
a
out the
big
fact that
no-no.
AIPAC funds practically the entire, is it the Senate or the House of Representatives? I'm sorry for being so
Well, all of
bumblesome.
it. I mean, it's
The whole lot,
amazing.
okay.
I always call them IPAC instead of APAC because there's nothing about America in it. It's the American-Israeli, group.
Yeah.
And the whole point of the exercise of, an independent republic, that we're supposed to have elections for our people, but you have this big war chest of money, and they say, we'll get you elected if you will do our bidding. And that bidding just happens to be for a foreign power. And so that's raising a few eyebrows here in the States.
Yeah. Well, of course, another irony, I guess, is that $33 million of it, most of it came out of Americans' pockets gambling in her husband's casinos.
Exactly. That's the thing is, the Adelsons were heirs to Meyer Lansky of Murder Incorporated, his crime network, his gambling empire.
How lovely.
Basically, that's where all this came from. And so all this ill-gotten gain, like you said, is Americans feeding their addiction to gambling, and they're cashing in and becoming multi-billionaires, and then they do philanthropy. I love how they use that word. We're philanthropists. We're here to
We're
help
job
you with
creators.
our
We
money.
create jobs in our casinos. We are philanthropists and job creators. Yes. Sorry about the accent. But it's true. It's ridiculous.
The first part of the creation of Israel, he was not only sending money over, but also sending weapons and was getting special permission from the FBI to do so. So,
Nice.
all those Israeli settlers before the Nakba, were getting set up financially and weapons-wise from groups like Meyer Lansky's Murder Incorporated, the Purple Gang, the Stern Gang, the Ergen, and the FBI was like, well, it's for a good cause. Gun running for a good cause. It's kind of like cars for kids, right? It's a good cause.
I guess it depends how you define the word good and for whom.
Exactly. That's the rub. It's like, for whom, is this good for?
Yeah. It's, there's this little event, because there'll be another one along next week. Don't worry about that to distract everybody from it. There'll be something coming along next week. This. It's bedazzlingly effective. But it's like, it's a good example, or it's an example of how we are assisting in our own destruction. Is it not? It seems to me. I mean, it's one particular area, but it's that. And I am reminded of a spider. Now, I can't tell you its name. Maybe I'm repeating this. Maybe I said it last week or recently. I don't know. There's a spider that goes into ants' nests. So it's alone. It goes in, and they don't attack it. And it's one against, I don't know how big ant colonies are, but they can get quite big, can't they? Hundreds of thousands, this sort of stuff. And it emits a gas or some kind of odor or pheromone or whatever it is. And what it does is it warps the brains of the worker ants, and they kill their own queen, thereby destroying the colony. And it seems to me that there's a parallel here with what's going on. This is more dark stuff, because I am optimistic's not the right word, but I do feel I feel buoyant about our chances, to be quite honest. This is just a sort of casting a gaze into the area of darkness, but there's definitely that aspect going on that people are still like suckers. We've got them all over here. Still think that there's some kind of political solution to all of this kind of stuff. I mean, there is a political solution, which is to ban politics or to shut parties down or to create only independent candidates. But that's not going to happen. And I'm talking at my bottom if I think it is. And I don't think it is,
Concession speech, he really let the plan slip that this is the beginning of something bigger. That he may have lost this election, but this is going to start something bigger. And a lot of people are wondering if he is going to run for president in the next presidential election in 2028, and
he'd do that as an independent, would he?
As an independent.
You're right.
And so that'll be a very interesting development if we do have a three-way election in the next presidential campaign.
Yeah. Well,
and how many people are going to leave the Republican Party, the grand old party, over this? Out of that have Basically, you had a sitting congressman, an incumbent, taken down by the party because he wouldn't go along with the agenda. He wasn't a team player. And it's like he's not supposed to be a team player. He's supposed to be representing the people in his district.
Yep.
That's what they elected him to do. And it's like he's being put down because he didn't play ball with the agenda
of their party and therefore their job and their pay packet. And that's really it. I'm not saying anything new there. That's just it. If you had independents in each county who understood what was going on in their county and could put things right, but everything has been this gradual movement towards communist control through centralized power. And it is communism. I mean, I prefer communism to globalism because globalism's just the new imprint for it, but that's all it is. I am still slightly, although I shouldn't be, I'm getting more jaundiced and used to it, but I'm still slightly taken aback that the people that subscribe to that ideology obviously don't either care about the history of this movement or can't even be bothered to look at it because it's just literally rivers of blood and ruin and misery and it's just a disease. It's the spider that's come in and blown gas in our faces. Right. And got us to sort of disintegrate around one another, which is it's a bit grim, but there we go. Anyway, that's the sort of dark side of things, I guess.
And you look at the similarities between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party in the United States, and then you look at the Tory Party and the Labour Party in the UK, and it's the same slime mold scenario. Where
it is.
Somebody might start out, it's like, I'm going to get into politics to do what's right and to represent the people of my district. And then they hit that power wall of, okay, you're in the club now. This is the way things work around here. We are the central committee. Here is the agenda. You are now a middle manager. Your job is to sell the agenda to your district. You're not to come in and tell us.
It might all turn out to go just as well as it did in Russia, Frederick. Maybe it'll just, there's always an upside to everything. Maybe it'll be just great. Right. Yes. Unlikely.
Yeah, that's the other part of this central, command type thing is it never works, but yet they keep doing it. Mm-hmm. It's like, how many failures do you need to understand that you've got a flawed model? But
yeah. Well, there's no point worrying about people that don't get it, I think. I think that, there is a minority that do get it, and that's the ones that we have to work with, which is what we're seeking to do all the time, I guess. And there may, as I was mentioning earlier, there may well be, I'm of the view that there are considerably more of us than we are currently aware of. Even the people that are in this direction, I don't think are fully cognizant of how many people there are that would be pushing in this direction. They just need, some of them, of course, probably don't have enough hours in the day to do these sorts of things. I guess that for the few that have still got jobs or whatever, if those things still exist, I suppose they do. But opportunities are opening up all the time for more further study, of course, which is rather sort of distasteful to most people, but it is what's required to sort of get to the grips with all of these things. Changing tack a little bit. Just going back to something I was touching on with Helen, just then towards the back end, she raised the thing. She put a clip up, and I played it last week when Etta Volt was on with us, which was of Catherine Austin Fitz talking about the title wrong, and it's extremely. The first 10 or 12 pages. I'm trying to sell it to everybody here. It's only about £8, I think, for a paperback, 8 or 10 quid. And print's too small, of course. They can't get typefaces right these days. It's really irritating. But he's talking about plasma. And I think plasma, I didn't know what it was. I just thought it was hot gas. That's not what it is at all. It's I'm going slightly sciencey here to the limits of the layman, which are considerable in my case. But they are unformed atoms. They're basically protons and electrons and all sorts of things in clouds. And there are two massive clouds between us and the sun, which were detected by some Polish astronomer about 80 years ago. And now it's all been proven and they can see these things. And although I haven't read most of the book, my first thought upon this plasma stuff, because they think it could be this interstitial fluid in which we're all supposed to live, the whole energy field in which we live. Because one of the remarkable little facts in just the first 10 pages, or I heard him talking about it the other day, because I watched a video of him and he was really jolly good, is that in the universe, atoms take up less than 1% of everything in the universe. The rest of it is plasma. So that's quite a lot, isn't it? Maybe you don't know anything about plasma and wished I hadn't brought this up. I don't know what you think about it.
Oh no, this is fascinating. I love this because back when I was at university, it was really when you started seeing, this was in the 80s, not 1980s.
Right.
This was when you really started seeing plasma being taken seriously as, the other state of matter. This is something that's not a solid, it's not a liquid, it's not a gas, it's a fourth state of matter.
Yes.
And it's fascinating to me because, like you said, previous to Rockefeller Rothschild science of the 1800s, where they went through and said, we're not going to talk about that anymore, especially with medicine, we don't talk about Galen anymore. And in physics, we don't talk about ether anymore. But we're going to rebrand this as plasma and take out all this other parts of it, especially the part of, is this a sentient thing? That taken out.
Yes.
And, so yes, I'm very interested. I'm looking at it. A New Science of Heaven by Robert Temple came out in 2023, and I have to track this down. But,
it is for the layman. I mean, he says at the beginning, he said, there's been a lot of work done on this, but there's been no communication bridge made, and his book is that. And Catherine Osterfitz praised it quite a bit, and and it got my attention. I thought I need to look at that, and it immediately made me think of the ether. It doesn't exist. Yeah, it does. There's something going on. I mean, the whole every space, and of course, when you look at atoms, there's nothing in them either. I mean, the 99% of an atom's just got nothing in it.
That was one of the things when I was, really getting into the esoteric side of quantum theory and little tiny neutron and then these teeny, teeny, tiny electrons, but the rest is empty space. And it's like, why can't I stick my hand through this wall if it's mainly empty space? So that's one of the things I always got fascinating with a lot of the early Gurdjieff work. And I'm trying to think of the oh God, who was the guy that used to hang out with Gurdjieff and did all the books? A New Model of the Universe. Oh, you remember Gurdjieff and all that, the Fourth Way books?
Yeah. It used to be pronounced Gurdjieff around me, but I quite like Gurdjieff. That's quite all right. Yeah, he wrote some pretty thought-provoking stuff. Yeah, he did. Why is it to him that you were learning stuff about plasma or ether and things? Was it?
Well,
did he
that
write
was
on that?
the thing is, getting into at the same time in the 80s, I was reading all the esoteric stuff, all the Freemason stuff, and getting into people like Gurdjieff and Ouspensky. That's who I was trying to think of.
Yes,
Ouspensky's work.
Yeah.
And range, this is our audio range, but there's far more in heaven than is dreamt of in our philosophy, because there are things you can't see, there are things you can't hear, and there are things that are there that are outside this three space. So when you start looking at things like plasma and how is the universe layered, and you get into things like Hilbert spaces, just the idea of how many dimensions are there, what is time and how does that affect physics. And so, this is, fascinating when you look at, plasma and then start looking at, okay, what is plasma in 3 dimensions? What is plasma in 4 dimensions? What is plasma in 5 dimensions? That kind of thing.
Yep.
So and you just keep going back to what the Greeks, everybody were saying about ether. That ether is just this thing that is not only another state of matter, but it is like something in another dimension that you can skip through time. That's the other thing is, can you go into this space and do a slip in the time stream 200 years later? That kind of thing. It's like fascinating stuff.
Well, it is. And I think that, the Greeks just using pure logic to effectively articulate the atom by just shaving things. If I take a piece of wood and I cut it in half, and then I take another one and I cut it in half, I've got to get to what's at the end of it. And so they go say, well, there's got to be a particle. There's got to be something that I can't cut anymore. Well, not with a knife, I guess, or something like that. And it's the whole thing about, I had a big problem with the ether because it sounds, 30 years ago when I first started bumbling into these things. And it just sounds like silliness. But the more you look at it, then you become aware of the work of Tesla and these other people and tapping into an energy field, and that there is no air in space. There is not as we know it. It's life, Jim, but not as we know it. And so I'm very much looking forward to getting through the rest of the book. So I might be whistling on about that. Yeah.
And they said, now when you get to the very smallest piece, there'll be this huge explosion. And he goes over to the sides of the stage and he puts his fingers in his ear because we're going to split the atom when you keep tearing the piece of paper.
Yeah. Might be waiting a bit. Yeah. But it is fascinating because I think, John Pontes in the YouTube chat, and I can see we've got a few listeners on YouTube, so we're sorry that we were late. We haven't got any on Rumble. We've not been able to get through. I've got a few ding-dongs to sort out. Said, all is held together with God's word. I agree. The universe has been spoken. It's as if we're in a field of consciousness, and these are all the aspects of it, but the complexity of it is bedazzling to our tiny little minds. You go, oh, it really is a tiny little mind. I can't grasp all of these ideas. And it's as if the people, the ancients, as it were, they knew this stuff. They just used different words to express it, different rituals to symbolize it, different sort of forms to communicate it. I think we're using scientific language now because it's being given to go, giving a little speech, summing a lot of this stuff up. He was also talking about a temple in Egypt that they'd been restoring, and it just sounded amazing. And it's become sort of like the number one tourist attraction now. It had a ceiling which was covered in years of cack from people cooking food inside this temple, which was disused. And they sent in a team of restorers, and they've spent 5 or 6 years restoring this stuff to reveal a complete planetary cosmic chart on the ceiling, on the dome, or on the flat ceiling, whatever it is. And it's apparently amazing. Because they spent an awful lot of time looking at the stars. Because if you've ever been to Egypt, there's an awful lot there. There's an awful lot. When you look at the Milky Way, you go, oh, it's really very big. It's really so silly big. And so from the very, very big down to the very, very small, and then you get these sayings like as above, so below, all of the model of all things is here. It's just down to us, I guess, to some degree, to try and figure it out and make better use of it along the wonky path that we've been given.
And a lot of these old temples, why were they so specific on the materials and between these, various metals? And I just wonder if the ancients knew a lot more about electromagnetism and, basically, the electromagnetic spectrum than we do. But they expressed it differently. But, there's a lot in those ancient temples than... it's just, this thing that is, I guess the thing that bothers me so much is when they redid all the scholastic books at the turn of the 19th century and put everything just in a little box. And so everything outside of this little box is just silly superstition and nonsense.
Yes.
And so you brought in this whole generation of people that, actively discarded all that ancient knowledge without even looking at it. And I remember trying to talk to my professors at university about some of these things and just that they would make a point to humiliate you in class for asking the question. That was how bad they treat this type of information. It's like, oh, that's ridiculous. You have no point. You actually have the head of a department telling you that you have no place here if you think about things like this. We're here to make engineers, and it's like, well, can I ask about?
It might be 5 minutes later viewed retrospectively as being silly at the time, but it got you to the next point of thinking, didn't it? That's what they are. They're like, they just push you along. You go, I don't get this. And people are not willing, of course, you're trained at school, to ask questions because of the very scene that you just described. the humiliation, apparently, in front of the rest of the class. Frederick, are you asking questions again?
Questions again.
Well, it did occur to me that I ought to be doing something like that. Yeah, so, we don't need you doing any of that questioning stuff. There is something sort of freakily disturbing, I find, thinking more and more about the late 1800s and the early 1900s. One does get a sense, and maybe it's this Tartarian stuff, of which I am but a neophyte in terms of looking at it, but I'm kind of bedazzled by a sort of feeling that I have about it, which I don't like, but it's sort of, it's addictive in a way, that there's, the things that you envisage for a more, how can I put it, elevated world seem to have existed. There was something the other day that somebody sent me about all these brollies that people used to carry, supposedly, back then. I have to say that. I can't prove this stuff, but they all had copper on them. They had copper tips, and the men's walking canes had copper handles and copper tips to the ground. Why? Because they were earthing themselves and charging. One type of knowledge, hidden now, but not hidden then, has been intentionally removed from our space. And I think you can say that about a lot of things, but it's looming greater and greater, with each passing sort of communication. I mean, the show that was on here before, on FFT from, let's see, 7 o'clock UK time, that'd be 2 p.m. US Eastern. The host of that's Guy Anderson, who does a lot of these things, and I've got to really evaluate some of the things he talks about. Some of them are quite alarming, even to me. I'm going, that can't possibly be right, can it? But one must try and retain as best as one can an open mind to looking at these things, because in the end, you've got to just go to sources. The only sort of challenge with that, I tend to think, it is a challenge actually, but it's definitely one worth taking up, not for everybody, is you have to find out your sources. Now, what were their sources? And then you go, well, and what were theirs? And what were their sources? And it keeps,
I've always had is how much of science developed since the last great ice age. Basically, the last great ice age was 50,000 BC to 22,000 BC. And so we're taught that basically we were just, gatherers and hunters. And then suddenly, just a few thousand years ago, we started developing civilization. And it's like, well, if you look at the archaeological record, we're told by science that Homo sapiens actually were here 500,000 to 50,000. So there was a huge chunk of Homo sapien development before the last great ice age. And so my question is, how far did we get then? That how much of that completely got lost and destroyed during the last great ice age period. And then you had these groups that were trying to retain that information. And then you get into like you said, the Egyptians, and talking about the Anunnaki and the Nephilim. And it's like, well, are these holdouts from a previous high society that was on the other side of the ice age, and that now it's just a remnant and very close guarded secrets? Or have we just literally just started science when Newton did his book? It's like that kind of thing.
Yeah,
the Greeks invented science.
It's difficult, isn't it? It just is. And I'm not the dark side of Atlantis, if there was one, or whether they are beings that arrived here from out there. I don't know. I mean, we were talking about, there was a little thing about the creation of men by the Anunnaki, but it puzzled me a lot in that, the story goes, and I've heard this from many sources, and one in particular, which I rate quite highly, that they're, at the origins of things down here, or in this current age, because I think this place there's been multiple sort of civilizational attempts or efforts or actual, wins. I think this place is really, really old. We're just in a different age right now. But I thought, if creatures came all this way here, the story goes, you probably heard this one, they came here because they needed gold. And I remember reading this in Nexus magazine back in the 90s, I think it was. They needed gold because their atmosphere was heating up. So they needed a whole sort of like ring of gold particles all around the planet to reflect the sunlight back to stop it burning up. And I thought, yeah, but if you could travel all the way here from wherever there was, isn't it a bit odd that you need human slaves to do it? I mean, if you've got the technology to actually travel here, wouldn't you have all the understanding to basically go, well, we'll build this and that'll build.
That amazes me is you had these huge underground city networks all over the planet that nobody talks about.
No.
And it's like, that's kind of an important point, because I've always wondered, during the last great ice age and also the mini ice age at 10,000 BC, when everybody started moving south,
Yeah.
we're told that everybody stayed on the surface. It's like, well, why didn't somebody start digging? Then you would have a perfect, chamber that was not exposed to the freezing elements above, so dig down. And then you find that, yes, there were indeed all these big mines.
They're big.
And there were all these big underground cities.
They're really big. It's the scale of these things. You go, whoa. I do. You get blown away by scale. Scale is awesome for us 6-foot humanoid types. It is. You look at those.
Go
there's
out
a door.
and dig a post hole.
Yeah.
It's just how much effort it takes to dig a hole to put a fence post in. And then you say, okay, now we're going to go into the side of that mountain and build a city.
I know. How are we doing that? Here's a shovel, lad. Get on with it. I go, hang on just a minute. It's okay. I've got 10,000 more to help me. If they did that. I mean, everything, the Everything movie. Yes, please. How long does it last? Well, it's about 8 months. We've condensed it as best we can. You can go see the extended version, which is 4 years. Okay. You'll need to take a break to go to the toilet every 2 hours or something. I want to see the lot. It's as if I wish there'd been, iPhones and video cams going all the way back to Tutankhamun and before. You go, right, great, we've got the footage now. Now we know now we can see what they were seeing and get a much stronger feeling for what life was like. But there's the evolved levels of thought from the Egyptians and all these. It's a different type of thinking. It's a different quality to it. They're paying attention to different things, not about sort of the mechanical management of life, but about what life actually is. And when you think, I was thinking about it today, what I put my attention on, and I thought, well, all of us have been kept purposefully, pointlessly busy with our lives, and they have obviously offered up some satisfactions along the way. It's good to accomplish certain things, and if you're not doing anything, you're not going to get, I do believe that actions are pretty important, because they're great teaching aids. I mean, at least you could say, the action of digging this massive mine in this mountain is not for me. I've learned that now. I've been doing it 5 weeks, and I don't like this. This is no good, and I'm not really interested in the big guy's goals. I'm off. It's having looked and gleaned certain things. You mentioned also all this hidden knowledge. Why? I mean, to me, that's an indicator of an adversarial relationship down here, and this does tap into what they were talking about. I remember speaking to someone saying that there were a different class of being down here was supposed to be in charge of the place. You think, well, why isn't God in charge of it? But this would lend maybe some credence to the idea that we were bred with kind of an incomplete intellectual capacity. Because there's a couple of strands of DNA missing, isn't there, or something, or bits have taken out. And that we were hybridized and brought up to a certain condition. And this taps into then certain records in the Old Testament where, God, or one of the gods, Yahweh, instructs his people go down the road and slaughter everything. Why? Because they were hybrids and someone's mucking about with stuff, and it's dangerous. And even if it isn't dangerous, the boss man said it is, so you better watch out because he's even more dangerous than that. So to be quite honest. And you go into this sort of story space and your world's different because of it, because you're absorbing all this piffle and exciting piffle at that.
Right. And, you look at what the Egyptians were thinking about, like during the first dynastic period, 3000 BC, and they produced the Book of the Dead. And that is such a different way of looking at everything. Going through the Egyptian Book of the Dead and then comparing it to the Tibetan Book of the Dead. And it's like, okay, what are they trying to talk about? And so many of those early translations of the Book of the Dead, you could tell that they were deliberately mistranslating things because they didn't want to go there, right? And then as later better translations come out, it's like, oh, this is getting into, there's more here going on. And this, idea of a, higher spheres of consciousness, et cetera. And then, going back to, those early city states like Zor and AI and society. And so they were doing selective breeding. And you read that some of the sun kings at that time were responsible for siring a huge part of the population. All this wonderful DNA data we have now, it's like you see these bottlenecks where it's like, yes, they were doing selective breeding programs here, and this, one super king basically, spawned an entire generation. And then you see later books like the Old Testament where they were having to go out and wage war against these genetically bred adversaries. So that's a different way of looking at it for sure, but that's what was going on.
It does seem that way. Yeah. It's certainly an explanation, or I mean, I don't know the origin of that word, to be quite honest. Apparently, certain footballers are gods now. Things like this.
I hear.
Yeah, they're gods. And it's a term that we use to refer to someone who is achieved an extraordinary high standard in something. It's almost godlike and things like this. But, maybe it's just got a plain meaning in the sense that that's the boss man. He's way, way smarter, brighter, faster than me, and there's no way I can beat him, so I better work with him. And he's said some terrible things, but, it's a bit like today. I'll choose this path, even though it's not perfect, The other thing that was in that little clip as well that I was watching was the idea that we were, and this I was mentioning it earlier, why is it I don't know everything? And of course this seems like, I don't mean it just me personally, why don't we just know stuff, all of it? Oh yeah, I know it, well, this is how this works, this is what we do. We don't currently, but we've got an anticipation that we could, or I do. You look at things and you go, well, too smart as to ask questions as to why and to cause trouble in the workforce. We don't want any of that. And isn't that what we've got now? I mean, it's like the pattern's the same, the form's different. The communications technology is different, and that's been the major thing in most of our lives whilst we've been growing up. Yet the aims is still that. It seems to me that the world has to be controlled, that we must be controlled like cattle on a field, and that all of these laws and taxation systems and banking systems are designed to restrict our ability to have spare time and use it constructively to start thinking about things. That said, I think people like us and the listeners here are doing a pretty good job of spending more and more time thinking about things like this and coming up with some good ideas about stuff. And it's a very fruitful and rewarding sort of journey to take, I find.
Library to get in the past. Yeah, that was the thing. You would go to the great libraries of a country to look at what they have. And now all of that is available on your computer. And that flies in the face of people like John D. Rockefeller, who, some people say it's an apocryphal quote, whether he said it verbatim, but, this was definitely his intent, was, I don't want a nation of thinkers, I want a nation of workers. And that was when you had the deliberate dumbing down of the U.S. education system. Up to the U.S. uncivil war, they used to teach ancient Greek and Latin in the high schools in this part of the country.
Yep.
Right? Now we have English.
Like everything else, Frederick, they no longer do what it says on the tin. I mean, I remember going to school and dreading the idea of learning Latin, and I didn't learn it. They'd got rid of it a few years before I arrived. This is at my high school. I think my cousin, who's about 8 years older than me, he did a bit. And Greek. And that's simply because the context is not set to really stimulate you to pay attention to it. By knowing this stuff, we'll be able to see into the minds of people from the past and see how they thought. And some of the things they thought are radical, surprising, wonderful, magical. You need that kind of thing, don't you? So we're going to go on a journey and we need to use some of their language, and you'll find a bit of it tricky, whatever. I mean, that's how I'd teach me. I go, yeah, okay, I'm in. Count me in. What you got? They don't teach Plato and Socrates or Socrates and Aristotle anymore. And they ought to, because that stuff's all over the internet in space throughout the ages. There's a whole body of knowledge that we know exists that we're not allowed to see because we're in the cattle class. And it's a bit irritating. And I think this is probably what they're slightly anxious about, is that we're in the process of moving out of that condition. I would like to think. Not everyone, unfortunately, but, because if you have a fully educated questioning population, they're not really controllable, which I'd love to see. I want to be part of that. That would be great fun. But talking about the internet as well, a little article, I meant to cover it a bit more. I might mention a bit more next week. Do you know about an organization here called Ofcom? You don't have to. It's not a quiz.
Familiar with the term.
It's the Office of Communications, and they replaced all these regulatory bodies that used to supervise telephones, telephony, and all this other stuff, right?
Yes.
And it's a major British visitors to get there, when in fact British visitors couldn't get there. They're extending their jurisdiction to the whole world. That's what they're seeking to do. The whole world, and your use of language and what you can and cannot see is to be governed, according to them, by Ofcom. And the fact that this suit even got allowed into America tells me that somewhere in America there's compliance with this. It's ridiculous. And yet, so how long have we been on it? We've been on the internet 30 years, right? Since 96, roughly. That's when it really kicked off, when modems became available at, 1K or whatever it was. Super micro speed, but at least you could send an email, and it was thrilling when it turned up. Now, it's got to be governed. Who says? What I want is to set up GovCom or something to police and control all government communications and have them shut down. I don't want to get into that stuff. They love all this kind of stuff. I'm not cut out for that sort of stuff anyway, long term. Too busy reading books and things and stories. But, so Ofcom are desperately trying to get bigger than their boots. Bizarre. It's absolutely bizarre. I mean, they won't be paying a fine or anything like that, but the whole thing, they've sent someone in using VPNs to try and get in and said that they're Americans, so that they're British, and they can't get in from Britain on a normal internet connection. It's this micro-control, and don't you think it parallels pretty much newspapers in the 1800s? You had certainly in your neck of the woods, and we had it over here for quite a period. Loads of independent county newspapers all slowly get amalgamated, bought up. Now we end up with a few national newspapers. They're all saying the same thing, and nobody can think anymore because, the whatever it is, that window for debate the Overton window, is now so narrow. And if you step out of it, you're far right. You're a Nazi. There isn't.
The newspaper, the Watauga Democrat, was bought up by Adams Publishing, Echo, Echo, Echo.
Yeah.
And one of the first things the editor did was ban me from their online comment section. Then they banned me from, or blocked me from their Twitter feed, X feed.
Yeah.
That this like, wait a second, I'm the local here. These are my opinions, my views. It would seem that my local newspaper would be interested in this. It's like, no, you're a wrong-thinking person. We're here to only promote right think. And you definitely have wrong think. And so just that level of censorship in your own hometown. And it's like the chutzpah of these people. It's like, who do you think you are? And then, going through, like when Graham Hart was on trial, and I was trying.
Well, it's a biggie. It's a biggie. These things just keep creeping around. I've got too much information coming in to digest it all. That's the other thing as well. There's just too much. And you go, okay, I actually cannot cope with it all, even if I was super intelligent. I just can't deal with that. This is why we need these little clusters and teams working on different areas. Some people on health and some people on this and some people on that. Anyway, Frederick, it's been great having you on.
Need to stop. Oh,
yeah. Well,
sometimes you have to stop researching and take off your shoes and go walk in the grass and get grounded.
I'll be doing that tomorrow. I'll go and do some of that. You're on RBN, aren't you? Coming up this weekend. We got 20 seconds.
Yes.
Midnight in the UK. Midnight in the UK, and no. Yeah, you are midnight in the UK. I think it's carried on FFT. There's parts of the schedule that are not published. So if you're up late on Saturday night and you want to listen to Frederick, fastest 1 hour in broadcasting. I was on with him a couple of weeks ago. We'll be back again same time next week. We'll see you then, and hopefully I'll iron out some of these video streaming things. We'll see you then. Bye for now, everyone. Bye-bye.